better place to start the third part of a trilogy about life in Cuba than at the hotel that is the model for a Hotel Nacional in Havana. Now we are in Little Havana, where the poor Cubans came in the 60s, 25,000. This is Domino Park, where the Cubans play dominoes all day long. Lunch in Little Havana is at La Carita. There are two types of lines at the airport. The big long one, if you dot with a group. So what the Cubans do, who are going to visit their families, is they put 44 pounds into those blue bags and carry carry-ons for themselves. As the sun goes down, we approach the town of Holguín. I am in the VIP salon in Holguín, which I think should be pronounced Holguín. We have returned to Cuba for the third time. Here is my crystal as we wait for our luggage. The amazing thing was the flight was early. Friday, 4 December, finds us in the fourth largest city in Cuba, Holguín. One could ask, what is the proper name of this town? Holguín or Hooligan. We have abandoned our bus for the heat of the town. It's about 4 pesos to travel on a bike. Now we're into a paper shop. So they recycle paper and make canvases for artists. Then they use very old printing machines from the US to do printing. And this is the product card that was printed. This is one of the pages of the book that was made here and presented to the Pope in September 2015. This is a typical and very nice toilet in the print shop. And in Cuba, they're now selling goodies at every tourist stop. These cost 30 CUCs. This print shop is a cooperative, part state, part private. This is a fruit stall. This is a peso store, so you can buy these in coops. You come to the main square of Holguín with the pretty buildings in the main square opposite the park. This is the main cathedral of Holguín, where the Pope visited. This is one of the squares in Holguín, called the Square of Flowers, where the city was founded in 1545. Money, peanuts. Money. After lunch, it's a walk down a pedestrian street. They're starting to introduce these into every town. Everyone on this street, except for the tourists passing me, are locals. Shoe store. Apparently they're allowing private clothing sales again. Now we're going to a puppet show. The Neon Theater. Outside the theater, they are selling illegal CDs. Royal service room at the Parisio del Rio Oro on the coast north of Holguín, Cuba. The Paradisius Rio del Oro is a big property. They have a nice infinity pool looking down towards the beach. The hotel's about 80 feet above sea level. The beach itself So-called the best beach in Holguin is not much to talk about. Few rules to follow. And this bit of wood marks the very point where Christopher Columbus landed in Holguin in 1492 on his first voyage to the Americas. The hotel itself has two categories of rooms, royal service and everything else. 8611 opens with a standard key lock. To activate the lights and the air conditioning in the room, one needs to put the room key into this instrument. The room itself is very generous. 2 double beds with something on the bed, an octopus. The bathroom is huge. Sinks with a very nice collection of toiletries. A toilet with bidet, a huge jacuzzi bathtub, and an outside shower. In summary, an incredible room, maybe the best that can be found on the island of Cuba.
Esa triste canción de amor de la vieja molienda, que en el letargo de la noche parece decir, cuando la tarde languidece, renace la sombra.
A rest stop on the way to Castro's farm. Next, grinding coffee. The coffee is grown locally. This is the family bathroom, complete with chirping cricket. Sierra Maestre Mountains. Now for lunch at the Aurora Palador with Aurora looking out upon us. And lunch from 6 to 12 kooks complete. So for 12 CUCs, you get fresh fish, shrimp, lamb and salads, rice and yuca, which is just superb. And there's a traditional garlic and oil sauce for the yuca, or plantains if they're serving that. Ending your meal with fresh fruits.
Mis nietos, mi hijo, la niñita, todos están por Guadalajara, por la tierra de él.
Okay, so she's now looking after everything because the rest of the family who looks after the other businesses here having to do with the bar, with the restaurant, are in Guadalajara, where I come from, near where I come from.
There are the barracks where Castro attacked Batista's army in 1953 to attempt to gain weapons. He failed and fled into the mountains behind him, where he was captured 5 days later. Sunday, December 6th, another cloudless day in Cuba's second largest city. I am atop San Juan Hill, and you can easily see our hotel in the distance. The hill itself is maybe 300 feet above the town of Santiago de Cuba. Not much of a challenge to charge up. The hill was defended by maybe 200 Spanish who really weren't all that interested in defending the hill from the Rough Riders in 1 July 1898. The Cubans believed that the battle had already been won by the time the Americans got here. With one last look at the top of San Juan Hill, it's off to the cemetery of Jose Marti, the person who began the fight against Spain in 1895. Changing of the guard for the Jose Marti burial spot every half hour. We are now now in the main square of Santiago de Cuba, named after the person who began the revolution against Spain to free Cuba in the 1850s. The Cathedral of Santiago, the nativity scene at the cathedral. On the corner is the oldest house in Cuba, started 1517, finished in 1530. On the west corner of the square is the balcony where Fidel Castro stood to announce the success of his victory and where he began his march to Havana, as we will do tomorrow. For lunch, we are going to Grandma Island, the name of the boat that Castro returned to Cuba on from Mexico. There's the restaurant we're going to have lunch at.
What Pedro, who is one of the responsibles of this, one of the person who looks after this community. And Wendy is 6. Tiene 6 años.
And this is the Spanish fort at the entrance to the bay. The morning begins with a tour of the University of Santiago de Cuba.
The most important goal for us is that getting on the work field open up to the world, to the U.S. Since job opportunities are
all the people for university. That means that people don't get drunk, like cigarettes, weed. We don't have.
We are off towards Camagüey. In the countryside are fruit stands everywhere where you can buy oranges and grapes and other types of bananas. Which finds us in Cuba's second oldest city, Paimo, founded in 1514. The city is in the province of Granma, named for the boat that Fidel Castro sailed in and landed in this province in 1956. That is a school uniform right there. We are walking to the town square. Artwork, pretty buildings and a church. That square there is where the first time the Cuban national anthem was sung. And the square is named after the first president of Cuba, who later freed the slaves in the 1870s. And they say they have 3D movies at this movie theater. And the main feature at 8 a.m. is Gravedad, a pretty pedestrian mall. They're trying to build these in every city in Cuba. The 24-hour hamburger place, a hamburger is 5 pesos, about a quarter. But one of these boxes from Irma,
is he bothering you?
for 8 kooks. We are now at one of the 2 main squares of Camagüey, Camagüey is Cuba's third largest city with a population of about 350,000. We begin our evening in Camagüey with a pedicab ride through the city at night in this bike. We are now in the square of the main theater of Camagüey. This is the second oldest theater in Cuba. We're now in Central Park, which is one of the Wi-Fi hotspots. So for 2 kooks an hour, you can, and that is CUCs, you can go online. The speed is good enough for Skype even. It's 6:30 in the morning. The church bells are ringing. It's a automatic wake-up call from our room. Day 8, Tuesday, 8 December, dawns in the city of Camagüey. The hotel has a small but pretty buffet. Camagüey is 501 years old now. The hotel is well located on a pedestrian mall. There are ATMs in Cuba, but they only accept foreign credit cards with an 11% commission. This is a bread ration store, totally empty, but there will be bread at 1:30. This is a pharmacy. Cubans have to actually buy the medications they are prescribed. This is where they do it. This would have been a wealthy homeowner's house. That's where the people would have lived on the 3rd floor. That's where their slaves or servants would have stayed. And this would have been the shop that they ran. The local Cubans, when they go out, eat at places like this, which are known as cafeterias, and the food basically is all in CUP, 20-30 cents for most everything in the restaurant. The Cubans who cannot afford the 45-cent CUC per minute charges on their cell phone, there are telephones. Children on their way to school, those scarves around their neck means they are all young pioneers. Next up, a ballet practice inside the largest theater in Camagüey, and the pride of the theater are these stained glass windows that survived the fire of 1850. So the ballet is practicing. The tickets are 5 to 10 CUPs for Cubans and 5 to 10 CUCs for Americans. 2 floors, no air conditioning. Giving instructions. So, pedalers pedal, and they each have a song. Our bus driver just bought a squeegee from this guy. The biggest crime problem in Cuba is people breaking into homes, and that's why there are bars on windows everywhere. And this is where we're having lunch. Restaurant 1800, very pretty restaurant. Now we are on the outskirts of Camagüey, where the streets are not paved and people get around on bikes. The symbol of Camagüey are these water-catching ceramic containers. They come in all sizes and shapes.
Yeah.
And there's a puppy and a nice young lady. A Hotel Santa Maria, said to be the best hotel available in Camagüey. Standard deluxe room, about 400 square feet. 2 double beds with heart layouts of the tiles. You're gonna have to move those back, however, to the bathroom because there aren't enough tiles to use except for those.
You do not want to mix this with Coca-Cola. Thank you very much. The only thing you would want to mix this with might be a cube of ice.
And the day ends with a Beatles cover band in the town square opposite our hotel. Lunch on 9 December finds us in the town of Sancti Spiritus. Petting dogs, the wild dogs. Very pretty. It's also very humid and slightly warm. Street features cobblestone sidewalks dating back from 1514. Some pretty decorations on the house walls. We must be in a wealthy neighborhood. This is the Guayavera Museum. A very pretty purple Guayavera shirt. Long sleeve. Raul Castro's Guayavera. When you see this sign, it means the house is for sale. Right there. Thursday, 10 December, day 10, begins at the Ibistar Hotel. Janice, who has not hit a ball in 50 years, is ready for her first swing. She hit it. She hit it. Sugarcane juice is processed 3 times. There's time number 2. The town of Cienfuegos in the southern coast. This is Jose Marti Square. The town was founded late 1800s. Population of 150,000. This government building is a replica of the similar location in Havana. Blue anchor signs means that there is a room to rent. And that's where we're going for lunch. Villa Lagato. A lovely walkway. They are free. With a beautiful view and no air conditioning for lunch. The lamb stew at this place was wonderful, and now I see TripAdvisor agrees 4 stars. And here's their collection of spices, more than I've seen at any paladar so far in this country. Many say Santiago de Cuba rum is better, much better than Havana Club. A gorgeous restaurant.
Welcome to our concert, and we're going to play for you quite a special concert. We're going to take you from the most classical of our music to the most popular of our street culture.
the San Fuego pedestrian street. Flowers. Lots of action in the street.
Whatever can be fished
And the
over
day
here.
ends in Havana.
Not necessarily
along the
fish.
mountain. You arrive at the hotel. You can get a drink always, with or without vitamin R. Now we are in a real typical Cuban neighborhood street. Listen to the noise. Here is a guy that fixes glasses. And there's the American Embassy right there. Opposite the U.S. Embassy. And there's the cruise terminal where all the ships will be docking in about 3 to 4 months. This is probably an excellent place to end the 3-part video of life in Cuba as we look at pictures and other video from our trip. At the bottom line, life has not really changed that very much for the average Cuban since 2011 through December of 2015. The biggest change since Obama liberalized American visitation to Cuba is that the internet has gotten a lot faster. The average Cuban can now, for 2 days' wages, get internet access at 50 hotspots in parks around the country. There are a lot of more self-employed Cubans in 2014, and they're actually showing up in the paladars eating there, so it's not just tourists anymore. And there is some wage inflation. While the average Cuban working for the state is still making $19 a month, there are doctors and other professionals are making $70 a month. Not a lot, but more. Unchanged, the number one area of concern for the average Cuban is getting enough food to survive the month on. The number one topic of discussion for the average Cuban is ending the embargo, or as they say in Cuba, the blockade. Cuba remains complicated, extremely interesting, and a struggle for all who visit Cuba.